Welcome to those who are joining us. We're going to get started in just another minute or two, just giving folks a chance to get on.
Gotcha.
As you do sign on, please give us your name, your company or organization, and title in the chat so we can get a good record of everybody. Sometimes it doesn't pop up in the attendance list. So if you could put your name and your company or organization and title in the chat so we have a good record of everyone that's with us. And like I said, we'll get started maybe in another minute. Well, go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar this morning on success stories and strategies for joining the farm to business movement. My name is David Eady. I'm the Director of Industry Engagement with the Racy Anderson Center for Sustainable Business, and I lead the Drawdown Georgia Business Compact. We have three great panelists, and I'll have them introduce themselves in just one moment. But before I do, if you're joining us, please do enter your name, your company or organization name, and your job title in the chat so that we can take note of who all joined us today. And just to give you a sense of the agenda, we're going to go through some questions where I'll ask our panelists questions after they introduce themselves. And then we will have time for some questions from you all as we get towards the end. So as you think of questions, if you'd like, you can go ahead and put those in the chat as well. And we will look at those to bring them forward towards the end of our conversation. So again, with that, welcome everyone. I'll go ahead and ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves and maybe start with Chef Tim.
All right. Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Chef Tim. I'm the System Culinary Director for Northside Hospital System. I've been here about 8.5 years. I did 8 of my years at Northside Atlanta. Right now, I'm at Northside Gwinnett. We got a big project going on over here. A lot of expansion, and so I'm just happy to be here, see what I can offer, and always ready.
Great.
That's
so Chef Tim Wade, everyone. Thank you, Tim. Next, Chris, how about you?
Hey, morning, everybody. Chris Drayton. I'm the district manager for Collegiate Hospitality for Aramark here in Atlanta. Been with the company a little over 12 years. Really excited to be here and talk about the progress Aramark has made.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Stacy?
Hi, everyone. Stacy Funderburke. I'm the Georgia State Director for the Conservation Fund. I've been with the fund for 15 years. I'm also based here in Atlanta and really excited to talk about one of my favorite projects, the Working Farms Fund. So thanks for having me.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. I do want to acknowledge my colleague, Allison Bridges, who is the program manager for the Drawdown Georgia Business Compact. And she's going to be helping me keep track of questions that come in through the chat. So again, if you're just joining us, please put your name and your company or organization name and your title in the chat so that we have a good record of who all has joined us today. So today we're going to hear about how companies in Atlanta have made, they have incorporated local food into their dining options. And we're really thrilled to have our panelists here today. Most of us know the benefits of purchasing local food, but today's webinar is about empowering Metro Atlanta institutions to think beyond just local. Value-based food procurement is an opportunity for institutions to align their core values like sustainability, equity, and corporate social responsibility with their food purchasing. And by incorporating food purchasing standards that align with core values, companies can influence public health outcomes, boost regional economies, mitigate climate change, and improve racial equity via their food purchasing decisions. The Common Market is our co-host for today's webinar, and they are a nonprofit wholesale food distributor with a mission to build vibrant and sustainable regional food systems that strengthen the health and wealth of all people. Our panelists are all working directly with the Common Market to source local sustainable food for their institutions and their partners. So again, welcome everyone. And I'm going to start off with a question for Stacy. Before we dig into the nitty-gritty of food procurement, Stacy, I was wondering if you could share why the Conservation Fund is involved in this work and how values-based food procurement is important for a conservation organization like the Conservation Fund.
Sure. Thanks, David. Well, the Conservation Fund, we've been around since 1985, and a lot of our work around the country and here in Georgia is focused on land and water conservation. But one thing that really distinguishes us is since our founding, we've had a big focus on working lands. Those are a big part of communities, economic outcomes for communities. So working lands include working farms, working forests, working ranches out west. And we have protected of about the 9 million acres around the country. Over 3 million of those acres protected have been working lands. And so a few years ago, we launched the Working Farms Fund here in Georgia. And the goal was to focus on the areas outside of large metro where we're seeing this growing demand for more local, healthier food, more climate-friendly, sustainable agriculture connected with that production. But what we were really focused on is farmland protection and the transition to the next generation of farmers. So we launched the Farms Fund, and the focus is really on going out, purchasing small to mid-sized farms that are at risk of being lost to development, connecting them to next generation farmers. And we enter into a lease with an option for those farmers to purchase at the end of that 3 to 5 year period. And then we bring public funding for the purchase of a conservation easement that protects that land forever, but lowers the price for farmers to make farmland more affordable. And the key thing is that in that interim, we want to support them to have a viable farm business. And the big piece of that is connecting them to markets. So we're not just getting them access to land and affordable farmland ownership long term. We are connecting them to markets that will help them have a viable farm business over the long haul. And often that is connecting these farmers to more wholesale and institutional markets as they scale up their farm businesses. So from our perspective, partnerships with the Common Market, who's been a partner since day one, ACRE, of course, who made a commitment to our program early on, those are absolutely essential for the long-term success of these farmers. So that's why we are very involved in the procurement side of things.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stacey. I appreciate that. So Chef Tim Wade, I want to shift over to you and ask if you could share sort of an overview of what your local food procurement journey has been in your work with Morrison's and with the Northside hospital system. Oh, if you could, you're muted still, Tim.
Sorry, yes, for one, I think we've been with Common Market since 2000, somewhere around that area. That's a steady growing market for us right now. We, Morrison Healthcare, we work with Common Market for all the hospitals except for Gwinnett system. And we do the Navigant system in Macon. We are doing Children's, and we're doing Emory Decatur. So we have a commitment process where we have all the chefs, culinary team to make a commitment to support the farm to business, the farm to hospital business. So and now we're reaching out, I think, to the Carolina areas. So Marston is a big believer in that and supporting that, and we are pushing that effort to make sure that we supply local, and we have the visuals. We use the marketing, so we're getting that information out there. Marston is a big believer in that. Northside is a big believer, and chefs as well, because hey, what better story is to when you out there at your chef tables, you're in your kitchens, in your retail areas, you're doing local product, and we get to have the visuals for that. Fortunately, I just won a competition using some local pecans from a farm in Albany, Georgia, and we had a competition with the chefs, and I incorporated pecans in there, and I did sweet potato pecan pie, and I had the visuals on that just to show that hey, this is local, and fortunately, I won the competition. So, we every kind of way, anything that we doing food wise, culinary, we are putting that hey, you know what, this is local. These fruits, these vegetables, this is local. So that's kind of been the journey, and we just want to just continue to promote, because then not only that is diversity involved, with something that a lot of our kitchens nowadays, especially in the Atlanta area, is very diverse, and like my establishment here is very diverse, and so that's good to see that. That's good to see that. So that's kind of been our journey.
I appreciate it. So how long ago did Marston start incorporating local food into the meals you prepare in partnership with the hospital system?
I think we're on probably our third or fourth year. We use a lot of the squashes and zucchinis. They don't have that right now, but that's one of our main sources. And we use a lot of the collard greens and kale. So we've been doing about 4 years. And the thing is, we using a lot of these items, on our patient menus, right? And that's something to brag,
Absolutely.
because one thing that we stand on is our patient food, which we're making sure that it's not just the typical patient food that you usually get in the hospital, but it's the patient food that yes, it's good and it's great. And guess what? Some of the items are local. Okay, so you come in that cafes, we have those posters up of the farmers. Hey, this is what we're doing. Okay, we have multiple accounts. We don't have situations where we invited farmers out and we stage them up. We stage a station up, and we may do a recipe for some of their products, and that's getting the word out there. That's that's inspiring, and that's that's giving the opportunity for the smaller accounts, the bigger accounts, that hey, you know what, we want to be involved with that. So that's the message that we send this journey. Now I just got here at Gwinnett, so I'm the last account that haven't been onboarded with the local products because I just got here. But this it's going to be really unique over here because we're large. We'll definitely be able to support, and I've seen it because we started in Atlanta, and we got chefs on every most of the chefs started at the Atlanta Northside, and so all the chefs in the hospitals, that's what we talk about. We use common market, we use local. We've been in some communication about using some of the proteins, some of the meats. So that's in conversation. So it's growing.
Great.
Okay. There's nothing, there's nothing that we're turning our heads on. We definitely want to look at it. We definitely want to have a conversation. So
great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Chris, over to you. Just interested in hearing a bit about your journey as well and working with local food procurement and your experience with Aramark.
Here at Aramark, we define the locally sourced as grown, raised, caught within 250 miles of the client location. Whenever possible, we strive to purchase from small scale community-based producers that are independently owned or, cooperatively owned enterprises. Our sourcing for BIPOC farmers has grown significantly since 2021 through regional efforts and institutional support, as well as an intentional strategy with our supply chain. Last year in Georgia, we started our forward commitment program with the Common Market with a few of my schools in the collegiate hospitality market. This year, we were able to expand that partnership past Atlanta to colleges in North and South Georgia, as well as in Alabama. So really, it's about working with the common market and seeing what they have, and then understanding what those farmers can provide to us that'll be beneficial, that we can incorporate it in to providing the meals and then marketing that information to our students.
What is the time frame for when you all started to really dive into local procurement, particularly for the collegiate market that you work in?
Really, we started about 3 years ago, right around the pandemic. When the pandemic started, when we started getting into that, and then it's really just expanded since there.
That's great. That's great. Well, you both alluded to this, but I'm going to come back to you. Maybe Chris, start with you about how local food procurement aligns with some of your other sustainability and equity goals. You mentioned BIPOC farmers in particular, but what beyond just the local, what are the other values that you are focusing on as you work to support farmers of color or support other sustainability goals that are important to Aramark?
When we look at it, we've got 5 core concepts when it comes to our supply chain. Really, it's locally sourced, humanely raised, sustainable seafood, no deforestation, supplier, and a supplier code of conduct that we hold them to. And really, it's working with our suppliers to take those important steps to drive the measurable change in the communities that we work in. I think in fiscal 2022, we worked with about 478 local farms and sourced 61.7 million in local products in the U.S. alone.
Great.
And following the webinar, I encourage our participants to review our Be Well, Do Well progress report. The new release will be put out in January 2024.
Be Well, Do Well report, you said?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Tim, over to you. How do you see buying local food aligns with other sustainability goals and maybe it's diversity, equity, inclusion goals for Morrison's?
Well, I'm a chef by trade, and I always kind of like to stay in that frame. For one thing, I think for Morrison Healthcare, we like take our chefs to the actual farms. We like to travel to the farms. We like to travel to the summer markets, looking to cool, touch, and feel. We some time ago we took a group of chefs and we went to Rahul's farm, and so we want to learn about the process because it all starts with the process. So I think day by day, every day, we just continue to educate ourselves about food alone and the local farming, what's in season, what's not in season. For instance, Northside Atlanta, we spent $40,000 supporting local farmers. Cherokee, $39,000. Northside, Forsyth, $39,000. That's within a year. Navicent doing around the same, $30,000, $40,000. True around $20,000. So those numbers right there supports everything that what we're trying to do. Because with our systems and Morrison's support, we are creating something good here, supporting the farmers and the farmers of color. And because, when you're dealing with patients and you're dealing with hospitals, it's consistent. Medical center is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sustaining on every level, making sure that we have the communication, we have the resources, we have the food, and we have the professional chefs to go out here touch and feel and learn their processes. And it's continuation of learning, meeting. So that's how we support. That's everything in a nutshell for us.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really like the idea of you all and the other chefs going and meet the farmers, understanding the process they use, and really having those relationships and being able to share that with the people that you're serving in the hospitals. I think that's a real great story.
Yeah. And I really wanted to, I know you guys probably can't see this, but this is like something that we did internally at our, for all the chefs in the Southeast region with Compass. Okay, so all the chefs had the opportunity to come up with a menu, right? And they can do whatever they wanted. But I decided to take one of our local farmers here, EKC pecans. And now you see here, I did a sweet potato pecan pie out of that. And you see first place here. So yeah. Not only we pushing the envelope here, we are making sure that, you know, internally we getting the information out and we posting this, we advertising it, we showcasing the diversity, we showcasing farmers of color. So we doing everything. And so this is just 100% support, that making sure that we give everything and we believe in, you know, the processes. We believe in what's going on, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. So I want to shift to thinking about other companies or institutions that want to get started with a values-based food procurement process, in particular, you know, buying local. And Stacy, maybe start with you and the experiences you all have had with the Working Farms Fund. You know, how would you recommend a company or an institution get started on their journey?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll use the Emory example because they were the first to commit to the Working Farms Fund program. And of course, long before we arrived on the scene, they'd already made a very significant commitment to local and sustainable sourcing and also defined what that meant for them. But of course, I think it was really with a view to their employees and their hospital patients and students and what they wanted to see, you know, healthier, more local food. But it's not as complicated as you might think. One of the things I've learned over the last few years of trying to navigate, and this goes the same in working between our farmers and the common market, is a lot of it is about the commitment, right? But these are commitments that are very much already aligned with a lot of the sustainability goals for many of the companies and organizations in a place like Atlanta and beyond. But it's often about transparency, just being willing to really share, you know, what their needs are on both sides, and then understanding what the farmers' capabilities are, or they collectively are through a group like the Common Market. And then figuring out if you can just start to make some smaller scale commitments that build over time. You know, recent examples that we had been working with one of our farms, Love is Love Cooperative Farm. They were rock star farmers here in Atlanta. Some may have known them before. We were able to match that five-member farm team to a 75-acre site that is out in Newton County and Mansfield, Georgia, and they have scaled up their production 4 times over what they were doing, you know, on day one, and they have been selling direct to Emory. They've been selling through the common market, but it still takes a lot of you know, give and take, understanding what their production capabilities are. But we just had a meeting on site that the Turner Environmental Law Clinic helped set up. And it was the culinary staff at Emory. It was Bon Appetit, their food service provider. It was the farmers and the Farms Fund team all sitting down to a table at Love is Love Cooperative Farm. And even just some of the problem solving that was going on there has led to the first forward contracts happening between our farmers and Emory. And it's really important because when those farmers can start planning out almost a year in advance and actually growing things in the field to match what these institutions need, it is huge. It is huge for their success, their long-term success. So I don't pretend that it's easy, but I think the benefits for the organizations that make that commitment are huge. It's what their employees want to see. It's what their customers want to see. And it really is leading to long-term success for these farmers on site, which is really impactful. And I'll just add too, on the equity side of things, we've wanted to make sure that we had a commitment to diversity within the farmers in our program. And to date, we have about, by early next year, we'll be at our 10th farm. That will actually be over 1,000 acres of small to mid-sized farms permanently protected and anchored around Metro Atlanta. And right now, over 50% of those farmers are BIPOC. There's a number of women-owned farms in that. And so we want to see both that diversity of farmers with companies in the city committing to their long-term success.
I'm curious, just as a follow-up, Stacy, what are some of the key roles you think organizationally that were important to have in that engagement and that will ensure success in trying to put something like this in place?
Yeah, I think it is, having someone in leadership commit to this is really important. Having someone in sustainability say this is a key part of our platform is very important. And then you need buy-in from culinary staff, right? Like, I mean, some of this gets down to like the actual food prep and how do you deal with fresh veggies? And then I think it really is important for the communications folks to make sure that they're communicating why these organizations are doing that and making sure that their customers and employees understand this commitment. But food service provider plays a huge role in this, and their commitment is just as important as the organizations. So it takes quite a few folks working together, but I mean, I think a lot of folks within those organizations and within the departments already have this commitment. It's really just sitting down together and figuring out how to incrementally start making these commitments and then grow that over time. That's the key.
Great. So, Chris, I'm curious what your thoughts are on recommendations. I mean, after going at this for a few years now, working, with a food service company, what are some recommendations you'd make to folks who want to get started?
Really, it's about starting everything out with a plan. When we looked at this, we took it, wrote it down on paper, really had 8 steps that we kind of lived by through this process, understanding the baseline of what our local spend wanted, what we wanted that to be, and then identifying the client's local purchasing goals, seeing if that's something that they wanted, because, when they are invested into it, then they're willing to pay. Identifying what the availability is through authorized suppliers, getting your business unit leadership approval, obtaining the supplier food safety audits and the certifications, making sure that they're up to date, which, our great partner, the Common Market, does all that for us. Implementing and measuring, educating, communicating, and impact of the long-term goals. And then I think your next question, I can jump in because I kind of remember and wrote down some stuff. I'd have to echo what Stacy was saying about getting the different people involved. It's definitely your finance team, your supply chain from all levels, including the sustainability, marketing, communication, your local team on the ground, because they're the ones who actually drive it, and then getting that out there, because that's what matters to the generation that's out there now. They want to know. The more they know, the better they feel.
That's great. Thank you so much. Chef Tim, how about you? What would be some recommendations you'd make to those interested in getting started?
Well, I would definitely say, start small, believe in, your product. When it's pushed back, continue to believe in it. We started at Northside Atlanta. We started, with maybe just one farmer, and we did that for the longest. And then we kind of had a drought in that. Didn't order. I mean, it was around COVID years. But then it picked back up. So basically just staying consistent with what you're doing, believe in your product. And then not only that, when you're doing your research, you know your product and know that in these kitchens and hospitals and schools that there are other vendors as well. So finding something that's going to offset for what the primary vendor is doing. I think that's one way that we've been successful as a system, how we can support Culinary Market and the farmers, because yes, there are other vendors here. We have big box operations. We're in Metro Atlanta. So figuring out the ways how we can forecast and say, you know what, well, hey, yes, we do this here, but why not support this? This is local here.
Mhm.
So having those kind of conversations on both sides and just, just stay consistent with it. I mean, I would say I've been working with Common Market. They push the envelope. They don't stop. So, it's easy. It's easy when you have some of these, when you have vendors set up, we just can push the button and order. It's easy. But, in my experience, Common Market, they don't go for that. They can continue to ask even when, orders are dry, and they don't give up. And that's been my experience with them. And just seeing this grow, and we having meetings like this right here. 4 years ago, there was no meetings. There was just, hey, can you support? Can you buy 4 cases for me? So, we have meetings. All of us are meeting now. So that just goes to show the importance and how, I mean, just like Stacy said, it's, Emory did it first. It's been out here. So it's spreading. So it's in schools, it's in hospitals. So, hey, you never know. It could be in the elementary and high schools next. So and that's the vision that you got to have and believe in. Who's knocking on that door? So that be, what I believe in, what I would say.
Well, that's great. That's really great. I was thinking though about something that Chris said about having your finance people involved, and to what extent you all feel like money becomes a sticking point where you're trying to convince maybe that you're paying a premium to get the local product. How do you communicate that importance that it isn't all just about cost and how much the food costs, but really has a broader message and broader value to bringing local food to the table.
Well, I would say one thing. I probably would flip that because that's going to me when I start talking about costs, you're gonna scare everybody and they're gonna run out of the room. Right? Because really, you kind of think about it, that is the challenge. Now there's a challenge there, and that's one of the challenges. So I kind of like what we've done. We put the product in front of everybody first. And I think that's just like anything that you sell. I mean, if I have this cell phone here, I have a pen or marker. I want to put that product first. I don't want to. It's like years ago when the insurance man used to come knock on the door and he talk about the premiums and all this. I want to go off with your product first, and let me tell you how good it is and why. And the why is, guess what? We're diverse. We're local. Okay, I want to start off like that, talking about those kind of things so you can really see the product itself and how we started and prepared and hey, do this first because no one is doing it. Hey, Emory is doing it first. Okay, just think about if you can have this in the medical center. Just think about if you can have this in your elementary school. So I really want to focus on first a product, get the culinary team involved, all the chefs, and then because it's almost like it's this. I always use this analogy for like staff members. I'm like, look, if you guys want to get promoted, when everybody's singing the same song, my job is easy. If you want to move up in life, you have everybody saying, "Oh man, that person is great, good, whatever." My job is easy to get you moved up, promoted in life. It's the same thing with what we're talking about now. If everybody's saying, if we're just doing all vegetables now, and we want to get proteins, we want to get meats and things like that in there, hey, get someone talking about it first. Then the money will never mean anything if it's a great product. In my opinion, that's what I think. And that's
Right.
kind of what we did in the Northside system, because, it started off slow.
Mhm.
It really did. It started off slow, and we have multiple hospitals that's on board now. And with Culinary Marketing pushing that envelope, not giving up and keep pushing and picking up the phone, it's growing.
That's great. That's great. Chris, I'm curious about your experience that you particularly called out having the finance team, and obviously, they cut the checks for the food you buy. How has that conversation gone for you, or what's the approach you take in terms of trying to talk about it as more than just about cost?
Kind of lose, like I was saying, customers today want the bigger story behind the products and the services that we provide. Sharing that information with this generation, they want to pay, they're willing to pay a little bit more because they know it's sustainability for the future. It's supporting local. It's really everything that, if you look at the generation that's out there today in the market buying everything, that they're the ones that are like driving for a lot of this. So really it's about the story. If you tell them that this is what you're doing, where it's coming from, they feel a connection to it. They say, oh man, I drive past that. I remember seeing that one on the internet, signs for that farm, or whatever it may be to that person. Then they're like, man, I can support that. I mean, they feel more empowered to give it. So then it doesn't really become that financial question, but then it's looking at relying on our processes that we have internally to manage everything, and menu engineering to meet our goals at the site level. So, we have to do if we're going to use a more expensive lettuce here, where can we, make some changes somewhere else to, better serve and not, never give up on the quality of the food. So just changing it. So just playing that balancing game, it's really about the art of pricing. Is it science, or is it just mathematical?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I love your point about people looking for that larger story. They're not just interested in cost. They like to hear that the food they're eating came from a farm maybe they've heard about, or maybe they've seen on their way into work or whatever out in the community. So it gives them that connection to the food they're eating. That's really great.
And David, could I add one thing to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think it's really important too for companies and institutions to think outside the box in how they fund that premium that we're all talking about for more local. I mean, the reality is the farmers we're working with, they are hyper local. Most of them are within an hour even, and more like less than 100 miles, from the city and the markets. But they are getting more sustainable farm practices, climate-friendly farm practices on these sites. You're shrinking the distance from the field to market for these products. There's the avoided conversion from development pressure and things. And so I think it's important for companies that have these other sustainability goals to articulate the bigger reason that they're making a commitment to local procurement, for instance, and then to think of ways that you can get other revenue streams or other ways to support that. I mean, I know one thing the Common Market and others have been focused on is like, what is that premium? What's that differential, right, that you have to pay to make sure you can commit to this group of farmers? And so I think figuring out what that is and I know it's going to be a little different for each organization, and figuring out other ways to supplement that, not just pretending that it's going to rely on the typical historical food budget alone, because you really are committing everybody to doing something different than they have in the past, and that they should be doing going forward. So I do think that is partly on institutions and companies, who have these goals around sustainability, to do themselves as well, to work with the food management companies to figure out how to make it work.
Well, definitely one of the things I've gotten from the conversation is that the food service companies are willing partners in the process. You need to communicate as a company what your sustainability objectives are and how they can be a partner with you through the dining services element of the company. So that definitely is a message that I heard from all of you. So I'm curious if we have any questions from folks who are listening in, who've been participating with us. If you do have a question, you could use the raise your hand function or just pop off mute and share your question. Anyone? Don't be shy. I hear, there goes one. Savannah.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see so many friendly faces. Hey, Stacy. This is a great conversation. I've been really enjoying it, and thanks all for the work that you're doing to help build this movement in Georgia. I was thinking about it when you're saying thinking outside the box, Stacy. So as some of y'all know, we're a compostable food service packaging manufacturer here in Atlanta, and we work with local farmers to help them grow native perennial grasses right on that margin land, on that underutilized land, to help regenerate that soil. So I was curious to those that are doing some of the procurement, how your procurement strategy goes beyond just the food itself, but to the other things that your food service operation needs that also can help support local farmers and your local economy.
Who wants to jump on that to start us off?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Stacy, you want to?
Yeah, I'll jump in for a second. Hey, Savannah, good to see you. Well, I think it's a bit, I mean, we are thinking about this a lot because, you know, when you buy, and for example, in Georgia, if you protect a small to mid-sized farm, you are protecting a lot more than the growing space, right? If you buy a 150-acre farm an hour from town, it's coming with 50 acres of forest. There's likely a stream running through or water quality. There's lots of other ecosystem benefits and things that are wrapped up in that property. So we've been thinking a lot more about how we articulate that in addition to the story for farmers. And one of the most exciting things about the group of farmers, the cohort that we're working with, they really do care about that. I mean, the fact that we're getting them into long-term ownership of the land means they can make long-term decisions about soil health, the environment, this place they're going to live, right, for possibly decades moving forward. So I think that's an important aspect of that. But they really do have this commitment. Like and with a little bit of, you know, technical assistance, the resources they need, they want to produce more sustainably, and they want to do all those other things adjacent that you're describing. And so we just need more partnerships like yours and others to come to the table to help them do it. The intent is already there. Sometimes they may not have the ability to finance that or get it going today, but it is already there. And I do think, again, this goes back to the earlier point about why it is a bigger deal for institutions to make this commitment to more sustainable farms, to more local production, to farmers that their employees and consumers can actually know and meet and understand how they produce their food. So it's a much bigger story than the food production alone.
No, I love the what you just said, Stacey. I was thinking about a conversation we had where, you know, to some extent you're de-risking things a bit for the farmers, right? They've got access to a market of a certain size. That consistency then enables them to be able to maybe get additional funding, maybe a loan or leverage that to get support for other things they might want to do on their farm. So I think having that more holistic view of what's the value to the farmer in having this partnership goes beyond just buying their food. It really it goes to sustaining their overall efforts. Yeah.
And real quick on that, you know, I think this is something that we've talked a lot with Bill and the Common Market about too, is we're helping that farmer. We're building the patient pathway to affordable farmland access for them with the purchase of the farm and then this lease that allows them to step into ownership within a few years. But guess what? That's day one. On day two, they need to upgrade their equipment. They have to build on-farm infrastructure, food pack, wash, like to meet food safety, like all the other things that they need financing for and support to do. It is critical for them to be able to know, I have a growing market with the Common Market. You know, as I scale up, I'm going to have the certainty of contract with them. I know that the demand is going to be there as I start scaling up my business. That is huge. And we can't help run all those risks and help them mitigate. So having that commitment on the demand side is absolutely essential. And it gives them the ability sometimes to walk into a lender and get that loan they need for everything they need to scale up their business.
I don't know, Chris, or you or Tim want to weigh in as well. I'm thinking about how do you support the broader needs of the farmers.
I'll go for a little bit and talk about a partnership that we've got with EcoVadis. They assess our suppliers in that supply chain, and then they have a scoring card that they report to us. And if anybody scores below a certain threshold, we initiate an improvement process with them to further our engagement with them throughout the year until the improvements are made, so that way we can continue working with them. So it's just kind of one of the things that we do to help support.
Anything to add?
Well, I would say, I really don't have a lot on that one. But what I think you're asking, and I've heard a few different answers on that. I know about the food piece. This is what I would say. I know about the food piece from farmers. I don't know much about the supply piece. But then at the same what you're referring to, like for my business, we have different sectors. If they have supplies other than food, I'm pretty sure somewhere in our sector can support that. Because we have tremendous resources. So, and once again, the things other than food, it needs to get out there, because all our conversations in the past months and years has been more food related, more fresh locally, whatever. So the additions that comes on just need to be talked about. It needs to be visuals. We just need to ask the question like you just asked, so it can be looked at. Because you kind of think about it, everybody looking for something new and want to do something different. I know Chris is, and I know I am. We in competition with each other. So it's something new, and the question like you asked, when you asked that, I couldn't really answer that. So that means that's something good there, and that's something, that would probably be the best question I heard today, because that's something that I couldn't answer. So it makes it more interesting. And then I know someone in my company probably can answer that. And so when you have things like that, that intrigues me, because that's something that I can take back, and it's new and it's never thought of. So that would be my response on that. And I think we need to make sure that something that we highlight and research and find more information on, and have more answers for it.
Definitely one of the things I love about the story with Better Earth is that they're bringing that additional revenue stream to the farmers in the,
Right.
Maybe during the winter season, they're growing this cover crop. And so it really helps to sustain the farmer as a business beyond the food that they may be growing in other seasons. So I think that's a value. And there's a growing opportunity, I think, as we look at the call for biofuels, like sustainable aviation fuel needs feedstocks. And some of those feedstocks could be those cover crops, like what your farmers are growing, your farmer partners are growing at Better Earth. So if we could think about ways we continue to get more revenue into the hands of our farmers so that they can strengthen their position in the market, make those investments, Stacy, that you mentioned that they need to make on day two. That's an important part. I want to go to Michael Patterson. You have your hand raised. You have a question.
Hi. Yes. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I'm coming up there. really appreciate everybody sharing all their thoughts and the information that you guys have worked on. I think it's great work, and we're really interested over here at Delta. So I have a few questions. One is, how would we be able to source from, or maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, but the common market and be a part of that program would be one of my main, would be the first question.
Well, fortunately, we got Bill Green, Executive Director of the Common Market, on the line here. Bill, you want to jump in and address Michael's question?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, I want to say, David, Allison, thank you for leading this effort, and Stacy for your facilitation. This is definitely a partnership business. I mean, the work that we're talking about doing and making our food system more resilient and more equitable cannot happen in a silo. And so when different organizations come together like this, it truly does accelerate the work that we're all working on individually. So I want to say that. And Michael, thank you for your question. In terms of working with us, Delta, we already have a relationship with Delta, and I think your question really raises the possibility of how we can accelerate this work. When the Common Market, when I first came to the Common Market in 2019, we were very much availability list driven. So many of the chefs would look at what we have currently available and say, you know what, you got apples. I like apples. I'll take some of that. Or, you know, you've got hydroponic lettuce. That sounds good to me. And that was fine for those farms that were already to a certain level that could take advantage of that. And then I think when the pandemic hit, we recognized that there were a number of farms that could produce, but just didn't have that opportunity because they needed that stronger than a promise, but short of a contract. You know, just this commitment that there's a partner out there, not just a purchaser, that says, you know, I believe in what you're growing, I believe in your story, I believe in more equitable access to markets. So if you're growing squash, for example, I'll step out there and commit to buying. If farmer X is doing 100 cases of squash a week, I will say, while it's in season, we at Delta will do 25 cases for some of our markets. That is a game changer, because it doesn't depend on from a farmer's perspective, he or she is not reliant on whether you're going to like them that week. They know that they have partners that are coming with them along the way, along the entire season. And so, to Stacy's point earlier, not only does that give them the courage to grow, but it also gives them the incentive to invest in their own operation. So now they're thinking, okay, maybe I do need to get a higher level of food safety certification. Maybe I do need to really invest in this irrigation system, wash pack facilities, taking my operation in a more sustainable direction than I thought I could afford. So that investment, that partnership is really key. So that's a long-winded way of saying we already have a relationship with Delta. Delta can purchase from us at any time, and we welcome that. What I think would be really helpful for the suppliers that we're talking about is a deeper conversation around what are Delta's values that they represent to their stakeholders, and how can we partner you with producers that are consistent with that commitment to your stakeholders. So I think that's the next level of conversation. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And I think, you know, it speaks to sort of the whole kind of conversation of telling that story. I think, you know, at Delta, we are so big. We have a problem. Well, not a problem. We are challenged by the amount of information we and stories we do want to share. So, you know, Delta is very, you know, passionate about, you know, doing right by the community. We do everything from, you know, blood drives to, you know, breast cancer awareness week. We're doing Earth Month, you know, recycling, farming, this, that, the other. So there's a lot of things going on, and we're in still our main business is flying planes, right? So we have to focus on that. And just a little context, I would love to have that deeper conversation. I work in the in-flight services division, so that focuses on everything on the plane. and working with our ground operations, such as the catering kitchens, to support that. So it just, trying to give you that context, we are feeding tons of people a day. Our domestic flight kitchen does over 400 flights a day. And with 20 to 30 first class passengers, I'll let you guys do the math, but we are, that's in, 10 of our hubs around the, nation, and then we have 125 catering kitchens basically. So the biggest problem for us is really the availability, or identifying, partners that would be able to meet that demand, to be able to do even a small percentage of our food that we put on the plane. So that leads me to my next question. What if we are trying to source a high percentage of the volume? What would that look like, and would that kind of take away from other people? I would never want somebody to base their whole business on Delta, because then things change, and that puts them at risk in a way.
Right. Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah. So, Michael, let's definitely have some conversation offline about that. I see we're up against the clock.
Oh, sure.
But there's a full, robust conversation we can have there, because at one time, Delta sourced, I don't know what percentage of their pecans, but they sourced a high percentage of pecans through the common market for our growers. And,
right.
We have multiple farms now that are growing Black-owned farms that can lead to that storytelling. And it's something that they're doing in volume for a government contract that we have. They're doing a tractor trailer load collectively, a tractor trailer load a month of just pecans. So there are those producers out there that can do food at scale. And I'd love to have some conversation with you offline about that.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool.
That's great.
Pass it over back to you, David.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for being here, and I'll definitely connect you with Bill so you all can have that conversation. And we really appreciate Delta's partnership in the work we do at the Ray C. Anderson Center for Sustainable Business and the Drawdown Georgia Business Compact. So thank you. We are coming up on time, so what I want to do is just maybe go around the horn here and give you all a chance to share any last thoughts you would have on those who are interested in partnering with you or their food service company and the common market in trying to drive their food procurement in a way that aligns with their values. And so maybe start with you, Tim.
I would say this has been great. And I mean, this webinar alone is showing the growth and what we do. And sorry, I had a call come in. Yes, I would say, hey, this would be a good idea to have quarterly, at least twice a year. So, because we shared a lot of ideas today, and you can tell, and you can see that, with communication and ideas, you can grow and you can learn new things from everybody. All of us do different things, and it just goes to show when we put our minds together and we talking about it and listening to the stories, and it really does inspire you. I mean, just this meeting alone, it makes me want to call 1,000 people and say, hey, you know what? We need to be doing this, right? And the more me and the more Mark we can get on here, because we're competitors, and that's what you want. When we compete against each other and we want to do better, I want to do better than Chris, and he want to do better than me. So we're going to drive, and that's just the truth. So I think if we can have this quarterly or at least more than once a year, it'd be great. Because then not only that, in some of these kitchens, when we order, we just push the button and someone said, oh yeah, don't forget to come and market order. But, it kind of rejuvenates you. It kind of recharges you to say, hey guys, are you buying local? Don't forget, are you doing that? We got holiday season coming up. Where are you doing local? So it's been great. I appreciate you guys inviting me to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chef Tim. I really appreciate that. Chris, over to you. Parting thoughts there.
As you think about it, I mentioned earlier, the forward commitments are, helpful. I'm willing to talk to anybody who wants to talk about how that worked for us and what it's done for our operation. I think we put in some best practices with working with Bill that have made that program, taking it to the next level this semester for my team. So, definitely willing to share that. And I know you've heard from me a lot on this call. So really, as I get ready to close, got 2 quotes from some people that I've worked with that are utilizing Common Market now. But really, Ed Robertson, a resident district manager at Mercer Dining, said, anytime you can sustain local farmers, it's always going to be better. The distance the produce travels matters. The sooner you can get it, the fresher it's going to be. And then a regional marketing manager, Shonda Lewis, said, using fresh ingredients and locally sourced products not only reduces waste, but creates more economic opportunities within our communities. This approach is not only minimizing our impact on the environment, but encourages sustainable practices. So just a few thoughts from some of my colleagues.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Stacy, how about you?
Yeah, just I'll say, don't take my word for it. Come out on a farm tour and meet some of the farmers. Come out and see the Common Market. I guarantee you, if you see the type of farming they're doing, the small businesses that are being supported by making this commitment, that will convince you. And the other thing is, these commitments always come from individual leadership within organizations and institutions. So it is going to take someone like the people on this call or someone else who really sees the importance of this and is willing to push, because you have to have buy-in from leadership to make this commitment, but it is really worthwhile. So just appreciate the time and everybody allowing us to talk a little bit about it. But yeah, reach out and we'll take you on a tour.
That sounds great. And yeah, I mean, the Drawdown Georgia Business Compact, the idea there is we can do more collectively than we can individually. And so, if we had not just Delta, but had several of our corporate partners in conversation with Bill and others around how can we source from your the farms that you have relationships with. I love the idea of doing a farm tour, for some of these corporate partners to really give them an appreciation of where this food would be coming from and the stories that come from that. So some great passing thoughts. But Bill, I want to pass it to you to give us the last word as our co-host for this webinar.
Yeah, David, thank you for that opportunity. I again want to thank everyone for taking this time. There's so many different initiatives and so many different responsibilities that we all have that are competing for our attention. I just thank you for committing to this conversation, because as I mentioned earlier, this change, this food systems reinvention, this doubling down on sustainable growing only happens when multiple organizations find value in it and lean into it. And I'll end where Chef Tim and Chris sort of mentioned, and Stacy as well, and that is get out, see it, feel it, touch it. The Morrison's team, Tim brought a whole team out to one of Stacy's farms out at Snapfinger, and had a great experience just getting to actually see the food, getting to see how it's grown, getting to meet the farmer. Chris brought his team to the warehouse, and we had a great conversation with a lot of the chefs that are under his leadership, who got to actually see the food and see the traceability and talk about the food safety. These are things that personalize food purchasing, that takes it from being transactional to being relational. And I think that's where we have to go with this if we truly want to this change that impacts our soils, that impacts the earth, that impacts the local economy, and make sure that 10 years from now, we're not down to 6 main farms in this country. I heard the secretary, and this is the last thing I'll say, I heard Secretary Vilsack, when he was here for a meeting recently, say that last year was the wealthiest year in the history of agriculture. However, 92.5% of that wealth was generated by 11% of the farms. 11%. That means 89% of farms shared 7.5%. So what do you think is going to happen when that 89% of farms are gone because they can't afford to operate anymore? Do you think the pricing is going to stay the same from those 6 farms, or is it going to go up? We know it's going to go up. And we know that the growing that's being done on these large mega farms are way out west. There's all kinds of factors that are impacting their ability to send food this way. And we know that most of their growing techniques are not regenerative. So what do we really want to accomplish? And if we want to do something about this, this is where it starts. These conversations, this level of partnership with the common market and others. We're not the only ones, but others that are looking to rally farmers that care about the earth, but need opportunities to sell. So again, just thank you all for your time today. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Chef Tim's absolutely right. We can't have this be a one and done. We need to keep this conversation going and until we see the results that we seek. So thank you again, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us for the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.